Okay, I think we're live. Are we live?
Hello.
Thumbs up.
Bring it off.
I think we're
Yeah,
live.
all good. All good.
Double thumb. I think we're live. This is our
Double
first.
thumb.
This is our first Google Hangout. Worship
Woo.
Central, West Side, East Side, Australia, New Zealand,
Yeah.
yeah. And hey, Nick Herbert, where are you?
Woo! Here I am, reporting for duty from London.
Headquarters? No, headquarters has moved to Sydney. I've decided.
Headquarters. Oh, really? You're the outpost now.
I think the day starts in New Zealand, so I think actually this is like.
All
this
right,
is it.
yeah. Yeah,
I'll
maybe.
let you guys fight that one out. You guys can fight that one out.
What time is it, Nick? What time is it in London?
8:30 a.m. So yeah, I've only just woken up, but
Nice.
yeah, but ready to go. Ready to go. It's nice. No, it's not sunny. It's horrible. No, it's pretty. It's all right actually. It's not bad.
Well, and so I bet you can't wait to come to Sydney and New Zealand next week.
I am so excited. I cannot wait. I've never been down under, never been to NZ, and really,
time.
really. You are, yeah, absolutely. I'm so amped about it. Really good. It's going to be
And,
great. 2 weeks. Ooh.
Yeah, and so tell us, Nick, what's your expectation of the Australian and the New Zealand worship leaders and songwriters you're about to impart into?
Oh man. Oh, well, in one way, I'm just coming with a completely open mind. I want to come and see what's going on and just try and just totally just bless what God's doing there. You know, I can't wait to meet people. I think we always get a feeling from over in the UK that people are hugely gifted. Over in Australia, it seems like incredible stuff's going on. You know, people really know what they're doing.
Because I was over there in the UK and like.
Yeah. You are. You are.
Is that why you had that impression? Because of me?
Yeah, I mean mainly because of you, Nikki. But obviously the standard dips occasionally. But I think yeah, I just can't wait. I mean, I know there's a few guys over there. Can't wait to meet up, see what's going on, hear the songs that are being written. You know, worship leaders, where they're up to, what they're getting up to. I think it's gonna be a wicked time, and we're really excited every time we think about. You know, I mean, when you selfishly decided to move back to to Sydney, but when we look at and see what's going on, it's like, wow, this is just so exciting, and where it could go, what could happen.
Yeah.
It's
Awesome.
a privilege to come over. It really is, you know. It's good stuff.
And mate, is there anything particular like that's on your heart that you're feeling like, man, this is what's happening for you at the moment, and other people need to know?
Other people need, yeah. I mean, I think in terms of the trip, I'm hugely amped about. I mean, I'm particularly going to be speaking everywhere I go about encounter and encountering God, and how we do that in worship, what that looks like, how as worship leaders, how do we lead people into encounter? And obviously, I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning loads on the journey, but I think it'd be great to learn together. I'm, you know, really excited about that, and it's something that I'm massively sort of passionate about, is seeing, you know, that we don't just sing a bunch of songs, you know, that we're singing, we're actually going to meet with God. And what does that look like? And it can be a little bit messy sometimes, a bit unpredictable. And I think it's going to be awesome. So a lot of that's going on. And back here at the same time, a lot of what's been going on is we're just getting ready for the Worship Central album. So, and the UK album that's happening, the recording's happening, I think at the same time as the event in Sydney, isn't it? So we've been writing a ton of songs, getting stuck into that. You know, I was up last night.
Google Hangout, because it's actually because of the time difference. You've got London in the evening and us in the morning. So we should like do.
I think we should do a high. You know, absolutely. I think that'd be so good. In the middle of the evening, we all just rock up on screen and just like, woo!
Yeah.
I think that's perfect. Let's have a chat with Tim. Make it happen.
Yeah, we could do it. We could do it. Hey, I had a question for you, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm in this stage in my life where I've got 2 small children. It's incredibly busy. I spend most of my time washing dishes and around changing nappies. And I've got loads of song ideas. Like when you arrive, you'll be bombarded with my song ideas. But I'm
I
finding
can't wait.
you can't wait. How do you take that from being 100 ideas or 100 voice memos to decide, like, finishing a couple of songs or one song, just finishing a song, and at the end of the year you look back and go, okay, I feel good, I've finished a couple of songs, and we're using them or whatever. I just would like some encouragement in that. What would you suggest?
Well, that's a really good question, because I think that's so common as well. It's so normal that we just start loads of ideas. I mean, I've got a ton of ideas on my iPhone, and whether any of them are ever going to surface and be a song, I don't know. But I think that's one of the cool things about co-writing. Is you put a date in the diary.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to meet with someone else, and we're basically, part of that process is someone else just going, yeah, I like that, I don't like that. So, sifting through, panning for gold, a little bit. It's like you work through, and you kind of, when you have so many ideas and little bits and pieces, you almost need another voice to come in and just help you a little bit. And I always find that, like, if I'm ever writing with someone, I'll just bring a ton of stuff, all of that stuff, the little things that you were singing in the kitchen, little guitar ideas here and there, and then really you just see what lands, because not everything will land. Some stuff might be for another time. And then I think if you get something that lands and someone else that you're writing with thinks that's a great idea, then I think you can really dig into it. But you've got to be quite disciplined then. It's easy, particularly with creative people, we love, don't we, the next little thing we hear. Suddenly, like, oh my gosh, that's it. Am I missing it? And we've got to be open to that, but trying to finish it is probably the hardest thing. In any art, that's the hardest thing. It's finishing it. Like, how do you know as well when it's finished? So it's a lot of hard work, I reckon. You've got to press in, but finding the right starting point is always a big key, isn't it? It's the one that you sift through all those ideas. And I mean, Andy, what about you? Are you in the same? Do you have the same?
I was wanting to quiz you a bit on that as well. Like, for me, I'm experimenting with the co-writing thing and have really, really enjoyed that. But I've also found, like, those relationships of those people that you're writing with are absolutely key as well. And it doesn't feel like you can have those relationships with everyone. Have you had any, like, guidelines or things that you look for in other co-writers or people that you go to? What are you kind of looking for?
Yeah, that's really good. Because I think there needs to be, when I think about people I write with, I'm always trying to think about who they are and what makes them tick, and I guess trying to bring out the best in them quite often. And I love doing that personally. Like, that's something that I know that I really enjoy doing. I love meeting with other people and thinking, who are you? How can I try and bring the best, the full colours? And yeah, I think it's key that you find someone that, in a sense, you can complement each other. So they might bring something to the table that you don't have. So, for instance, you might be really good at melodies, or maybe meeting up with someone who's got some great lyrical ideas is always, that's an obvious one, isn't it? You can fuse those things together. But I do think there needs to be enough of a crossover. That somewhere in the middle, there's a little bit of magic in the middle where the two of you cross over and you see something in the same way. Because sometimes you can be quite far removed from people, maybe the way they would ultimately see it. And I guess that's why it's so beautiful. We write loads of different songs. But I think there needs to be a little bit of magic in the middle where you can, cross over and think, yeah, we see this in the same way. We're going to go for this.
Yeah, totally, man. Cool.
Hey, I know that you're probably going to talk about this when you get here, but how did the idea for God's Great Dance Floor, because that's been a massive hit in Australia.
Oh my gosh.
And nobody would have any idea that you had anything to do with it, if I'm honest. But I know that I've heard you talk about how you had that riff, that piano riff.
Yeah.
And it kind of grew from there, the idea.
Yeah. Well, it's a cool story because I guess one of the ways I've tried to stay fresh as a songwriter in the last few years is to start branching out and writing on piano, because I never ever used to play piano. In fact, I don't. My wife is an amazing pianist, so she's had to suffer hours of torture of me like playing piano at home and trying to work out things. But what I love is it takes me out of the comfort zone. And one day I came up with that, you know, the riff, I guess, on God's Great Dance Floor. You know, down, 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 kind of vibe. And then I took it, and I just felt like this could be a really good fast song. Something about it just feels like, oh, I can hear this in a 80s kind of way. and then
that piano riff, the down, down, that bit, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and that kind of runs through the song. Yeah. And I don't know, I just literally, I guess sometimes when you know so little about what you're doing, maybe it makes you a little bit more creative. You know, you kind of end up in this space where you don't quite know what's going on. But I did this riff, and I just felt like, I know this feels really good. I don't know where it's going to go from here, but I know it feels good. And then I had a date booked in to write with Martin Smith, and we've been doing quite a lot of writing over the last couple of years, and it's been great. And Martin's a brilliant writer, you know, we always learn a lot when you meet with Martin. But I sat down and played this riff, and you could see that he really liked it and wanted to move it on. And then from there, that started a journey where we wrote 2 songs out of that, and one of them is called Back to the Start, which kind of is on Martin's record, and the other one then developed and got further developed with Chris Tomlin and became God's Great Dance Floor. And God's Great Dance Floor is the kind of the end section of Back to the Start, so it kind of you know, carries on where the first song left off.
Yeah.
But I had this great moment because it kind of was just spiraling and just going on this incredible journey. And I remember one day, and I'll say a bit about this when I'm over there, but one day I was at home and I put on live stream, you know, the Passion Conference in Atlanta. And, you know, I don't know how many thousand they've got jumping up and down at the Atlanta Dome, but there's all these students jumping up and down. And suddenly the song came on, you know, God's Great Dance Floor, and someone mentioned it might be part of the set. And I remember sitting there in the kitchen just looking at these thousands of students just celebrating and dancing. And honestly, there was this moment I sat there and I got my wife Ali over and we sat and we just said, this is so exciting. And then we turned round and in the corner of my room I could see this Casio keyboard when the song started. And you just see, and then I looked back and I just thought, I can't quite believe it's gone on this journey. And it's huge privilege to be part of it. I love leading the song. It's really fun, and there's just something about it. Just makes you want to jump up and down, you know. And I love songs like that. I mean, it's such a privilege to be part of. And I think my encouragement to people is, you know, well, one, you never know the life of the song, where it can go, and you know the little ideas, like we were just talking about something on the iPhone, just this tiny little idea. You don't know where that could go, so be encouraged. And also, really, honestly, coming from a place of really not knowing what I'm really doing on the piano, I know very little, to see something develop, that God can sort of take, you know, I guess the weak parts and, you know, the things that we're exploring, and if we're just trying to branch out, and if He's on it, you know, so, and we got to run with that. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it?
Hey, we've got a question. We've got a question here, Nick, from Deb. It says, "How do you know a song is finished? How do you make that call? Like if you played it in church, or you know, your pastor's, what is that? Your pastor's happy with the theology, found an arrangement. How do you make the call? How do you just know? Yep, that's it. It's done."
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I do think that's one of, in some ways, it's one of the hardest parts of not just songwriting but art in general. I mean, I studied a fine art degree, and so I used to do loads of painting, and it was always the hard thing, like when is a painting actually done? Because you always want to put a little bit more and just slightly tweak a bit more and a few more brush strokes. It's a bit like that with the song. I mean, the way I tend to do it now with songs is I'll definitely play them at church, and it's in that arena that I realise whether I think it's finished. So, and I don't mind. I have an attitude of, if it doesn't quite feel right, I'm happy to then go away and rewrite it, and then not bring it out for a few months, and then bring it. Hopefully, people have forgotten how it used to sound when it wasn't quite finished. And that's happened with quite a few songs, you know, over the years. And also, I guess when you write with other people, what's really cool is if they're doing it at their church as well, and then you can both phone each other up and just say, how did it go? Was there anything that feel, you know, there was that chorus that it didn't quite feel right over here, but they might say, you know, it absolutely landed, but maybe they arranged it in such a way that just brought life to it. So yeah, I think you got to do that. I'd always run it past, you know, leaders, pastors, theology. Make sure you get that right. There's nothing like, you know, some bad theology just to, you know, completely say this song really isn't finished or it's not going to go anywhere. So yeah, yeah. So I think yeah, that's the key. But it's a really good question, and it's definitely like one, even up to, like, at the moment we're talking about this Worship Central album, and I know that right up to the recording there'll be moments of, is this song finished?
Yeah.
You know, there's writing lyrics in the street outside, just trying to get it right. So yeah, you know, you got to keep going.
The other thing is, once it's recorded, I know Les from Kingsway from Integrity always says, is once it's recorded, that first time, that's it. Like, because it's like, that's kind of like the publishing. It's published then, and then you don't have the liberty to just change it and make new versions of it. So, I mean, I suppose that's a good deadline, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think that is actually really good to have those things in place. I mean, obviously not everyone may be recording their songs, but, you know, if you've got that going on, I think that's a really good, you know, really good tester. Absolutely, and, you know, no going back from that point, I guess.
Yeah.
And mate, with all the kind of writing that's going on for you, and maybe hearing some songs from around the world, what are there any like themes that you reckon, like, oh, we've just hammered that theme, or man, we need to be writing more songs around these sorts of ideas, or how are you feeling, like any stuff around that?
What I am seeing a lot of is, it's really interesting how various patterns follow. So, for instance, when there's a lot of fast songs being written, there'll be various words that are used a lot, you know, and that's trying to break out of that. Or maybe when a particular song about a particular theme's used, being written about. The challenge is how, the biggest challenge for me is seeing how do you really bring something fresh to the table. You know, how can you really break out of those things that have been said, and you know, of course, things are said because they're good. So in a way, there's nothing wrong with that. But if I was to challenge or say, what would I love to see more of? Is I'd love to see us digging in, digging deeper lyrically, and thinking, and just being really creative. Like and even maybe in some ways, just the way we use words as well. I think that's quite key. If you look at a lot of the pop songs out there and the way words are moved around a bit, and you know, the phrasing and the way things are put, obviously not all of that's going to work inside the walls of the church, but I think we're at a stage where we really have to think, you know, how can we really go for this? Say something that doesn't feel like it's been said before. And
is there anyone that you can think of, like, that's doing that right now that you've been really inspired by, like a Christian artist or worship leader or writer that's?
Yeah, I mean, I'm inspired by loads of people. I mean, I think a song like, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this song. One song that stood out to me in the last few years is that song Oceans.
Yeah.
You know, that it's just got some language imagery. It just feels like that's an interesting, although I've heard lots of songs about that kind of thing before, it just feels like somewhere along the line it takes you into that new space, or I don't know how. You know, it's a mystery. That's the problem with songwriting. I wish you could bottle it. But I think, do you know what I mean by that? I think that's the kind of, you hear the odds and you think, oh, that feels like they really pressed in and something came out of that. They thought about the theme in quite a deep, you know, deep way, Oceans. But yeah, I think that's, you know, that really stood out to me when that song came out. But I think so many of them. I mean, it's always a challenge. I think the challenge is to really go with trying to work out. A big part of it is trying to work out who you are and who you are before God, and bringing that to the table. Yeah. And what I'll often say, I guess, to if I'm working with people who are less experienced or they're younger writers, I try and say to them, look, be as raw as you can be. Try and do what you love doing, and then let's work with that rather than do what you think something should sound like. You know, 'cause I think that's the kind of thing you often get is people will write something and they think, well, it should, you know, this is kind of what a fast song in the church sounds like.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm always saying, actually, no, do what you love. What do you love listening to? Bring that to the table, and then it's easier to shape that and maybe bring that in a bit. So that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but that would be my encouragement. But I think there's so many great writers out there who are all pressing in. I mean, I'm always loving what Matt and Martin are bringing to the table when you see them. New albums coming out, they're always finding those fresh ways of saying something that, you know, and I'm loving the process working with the Worship Central out. You know, we're really loving digging in. Like last night we were up late, you know, Tim was there, Ben was there, we're digging in, trying to craft these lyrics, trying to get the songs right, and I love that. You know, it's so important to care about what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
You know.
I have another question. Sorry, Andy. Quickly, and then Andy, talk too much. But hey, just with being over in the other side of the world and down under and in New Zealand. Well, I'm not in New Zealand, but this side of the world. Now we just have so much access to the best songs in the world, all the great songs that are coming out, and you know, there's great voices like, you know, like you just said, Matt Redman and the Passion Guys and Worship Central and in the UK, and yeah, there's loads of them, Bethel and all that. So it feels like we've got the best songs in the church to choose from because we have access to them so easily, but it's really hard then to find your voice and what's God saying to our little community in Manly or in wherever we are, and trying to get a confidence in that, because it's so intimidating because you're singing the top 10 CCLI in the world, and then it's like your song has to stand up to that at first go. And so I think, I mean, this might just be me, but there might be a lot of worship leaders and songwriters out there that have got a voice, that have got something to give to their church, but like how do we make sure that we really invest into that and cherish it and pursue that, as well as like using the great songs that the world's singing?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, I mean, generally speaking, the great songs didn't just happen overnight. You know, it took a while to get there. So it's really key to create space. I totally agree with that. Creating time and space in your community to say, look, let's see where this goes. What can we bring? And I think the great thing about, like you're saying, the access to all these songs is that in a way it has made us so aware. Like the world's got a lot smaller. You know, we suddenly realise actually this is kind of the standard and where things are, and it helps. You know, iron sharpens iron. You think, well, okay, because at the end of the day, you've got to feel like if you're going to pick up a song, that you really want to pick it up, you know, and that you love it. You don't just like it, you absolutely love it. And that's so key. So the reason you choose the songs you choose on a Sunday or play the ones you do is because you love them. I guess, as you think, I really love this song, it feels so good and it's saying something. So in one sense, that's the challenge to us all as songwriters, is trying to get to a place where you're writing a song that you love. You know, you don't just like it, or it's not just good enough. That takes time, and that's okay. And creating space and going on a journey for that is absolutely right and true. And I think, you know, the best things that come out for me are always, it's always about the local church. You know, and I think that the danger is when we start thinking that songs are just floating around, but they're not attached to anything. You know, they're just songs and they're just happening. Whereas I think when you realise some of them are coming out of this place of real connection with what's going on in a local community, and they're the overflow of that, then you realise actually we're all in the same boat. It's just we need to craft and spend time, and you know, and it's not uncommon for people. I mean, there's this great guy from the old big band days, this clarinetist called Artie Shaw, and he was an incredible musician, and he said something like, you know, I only did I only ever did 2 good things creatively in my whole life, and all the rest was rehearsal.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere it's about expectation as well. It's about, I think some people are going to be called to write a lot of songs and probably be some of the hymn writers for the future and for our generation. They'll probably end up writing hundreds and thousands of songs. Other people could be a huge achievement to write 2 songs over a lifetime that really surface, and they have a huge impact and change the atmosphere in the room. And so I think it's all about finding out who we are in God, what our calling is, wrestling with that, getting others around us to see and help and shape and guide, and kind of taking the burden off a bit, recognizing those who are going to just be, they're prolific, that's their calling, they should do that, and others takes a long time to get there, but they get there, and we've got to invest in that. So I hope that kind of goes some way towards.
It's good, man. It's good. It's good to hear people like really waving the baton for the local church, and so I think there is that kind of sense of global stuff happening around the world that's big and epic and amazing, but I think attention really needs to be paid to the smaller stuff that is happening in local churches, and I think it's great that you're like really into that. That's really encouraging.
It all comes from there. I mean, even the other day I was in my church, I was just in a prayer meeting and someone was praying this beautiful prayer, and I'm, it's just like a morning, 7:30 in the morning, early doors, and there's like 5 of us there, and you suddenly hear this prayer and you think, that's incredible. that what you're saying, how you're expressing it, I'd love to put something of that into a song. So it all comes really from the small, immediate stuff, the things that are right in front of us, in a way, So I definitely encourage people, start in that place. What's God doing right in front of you right now? You'll find this quite a lot.
And I think we're probably running a bit short of time, but just quickly, last question from me. You mentioned like ways for staying fresh with your writing, like getting on a fresh instrument or experimenting in that way. You've obviously been leading worship for quite a while now, doing 12 plus years at St Mary's, now in Twickenham.
Quite a while.
Any thoughts on like how have you stayed fresh and passionate and alive and all that kind of stuff?
I think it's really key to just cultivate that private partnership with God. Cultivate that moment which says, in the whole midst of everything we're doing, rather than saying I'm going to fit God into my life. How does my life fit around God? How can I make what I do fit around? So I'm doing His will and I'm spending time and making sure. And there are seasons, recognizing there are seasons when you're so busy, and there's grace for that. And there are seasons when you've got a bit more time and you make the most of that. And I would go away for a day where I can and have a retreat and just spend time, being quite disciplined in that and just reading, praying, digging in, just spending time away from it all. And I think that's kind of key, to keep fresh. And if nothing else, it just helps you gain perspective. It's not about coming away from a day like that and thinking, oh wow, I've seen 5 potential great song ideas from today and the things I've read and prayed about. That could happen. But what will definitely happen is you'll come back with fresh eyes and fresh ears and thinking, I get it again. I can kind of see how it all works again. And I think that's the key thing, because we can get so wrapped up in the immediate. But it's easier said than done, and you have to kind of go with the season you're in a little bit and not be worried about that. I think that's key as well.
It's great, bro. It's great.
Hey, that's so good, Nick. So I always feel so encouraged after hanging around with you.
Oh, so, you're awesome.
Hey, and so many more questions. Like, we could talk for hours about all this stuff, and we will be, won't we? March 22nd.
Literally.
Yes, see, good transition. Next Saturday, March 22nd, you're going to be at St Matthew's Church in Manly. We're doing Worship Central Day. It's going to be amazing, lots of worship, lots of teaching, lots of room for prayer, for people to receive prayer, and then talking about songwriting, some practical sessions. So we can't wait for that. Everybody out there, Andy's just going to about to tell everybody about his thing, but we've got Worship Central Australia page that you can like and look at on there for details. We've got a Twitter and a Instagram, WCentralAU, which you can follow. And yeah, hoping that we just want to have a church packed full of worship leaders from all different denominations, wanting to learn, wanting to seek God and be encouraged. So yeah, what about you, Andy?
Mate, we haven't got Twitter in New Zealand yet, but we've got this thing called Facebook. So yeah, definitely check Worship Central New Zealand or NZ, I think it is, on Facebook. Our event is ready for songwriters and worship leaders. It's the following Saturday, so Saturday the 29th of March in the evening at St. Paul's Church in Auckland. Love as many songwriters, worship leaders to come along and be part of that. Nick's going to be sharing more about songwriting. A mate of mine, Tom Field from Wellington, is going to be leading some worship. And it's going to be a great night, worshiping together and praying for each other and getting inspired in our creativity. So love to see you there. How's that? Was that good?
And I think someone's just said online that in 2015 New Zealand's getting electricity and Twitter will be available.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's only
it's amazing that dial-up has lasted this long, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. Okay, well, thanks so much for logging in from everybody out there that's watching right now on YouTube. Thank you so much for logging in. We'll see you soon, and God bless, and thanks, Andy, and thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nikki and Nick.
Love you guys.
Thanks, guys. Can't wait. See you soon.
Okay,
See you later, mate.
Paul, you're going to log us off. Bye.
Yeah.